and welcome to another lesson in public speaking. In this lesson, we will learn more about verbal communication, the actual words in your speech. We will be learning about various language uses and strategies to engage the audience as a practice in mindful and audience-centered speaking, and understand why it's important to avoid potentially exclusive language. This skill is especially valuable when giving a speech to a diverse audience. So let's get started. Language can be used in powerful ways. It can create imagery, connect people and divide them, including the speaker and the audience, and bolster a speaker's credibility, which in turn helps build trust. So let's start with the power to create imagery. Maybe you've heard the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, what happens when we don't have the ability to present pictures? Or maybe an audience member is visually impaired. Well, it would be your job, the speaker, to provide words to create rich imagery for your audience and bring them even closer to your message. Okay, that might be a bit exaggerated, or the circumstances might not be exactly the same. But the point is that language itself can paint a powerful picture and truly help set the tone for your speech. But how so? Well, here you see a simple list of linguistic strategies on the left, and a space for you to pause and generate your own examples on the right. Let's start with metaphor. What is a metaphor? Think back to your first English class. Metaphors are words or phrases applied to an object or action to which it is not literally applicable, while a simile compares one thing to another of a different kind, often using the word as. You'll notice other creative strategies here as well, such as personification, hyperbole, and alliteration. How can these strategies be used in a speech to create a rich, thoughtful, and mindful message for your audience? Let's take a step back quickly and talk about how words can also shape our perception. For example, knowing the origins and meanings of language has the power to shape listeners' perceptions. Etymology is the study of word origin. The word androgen, for example, comes from the Greek words male and hormone. But did you know the word estrogen, translated from its original form, means frenzied or mad desire and female? Well, that's interesting. Words also have roots in other disciplines. For example, the terms idiot, moron, and imbecile, if I may be so bold, were 16th to 17th century medical terms, not the best of times, to describe IQs given one's physical or mental state. Now, we are all aware words carry social stigmas, and by thinking about and then eliminating these terms from our speech presentations, we show our audience that we're being mindful and considerate of them. In fact, there are several phrases embedded in the U.S. Western English that have complex, racialized, and even political histories. Some are listed here, but there are many others. So be sure to take note, self-reflect, do your homework, and most importantly, get curious about where our everyday phrases come from. For example, the phrase long time no see has a troubling past. Did you know this phrase was used to mock Native Americans' way of speaking English during colonial times? As was sorry, no can do. You'll find many English language phrases have complicated roots in racial relations, social stigmatization, and political correctness. It's important to consider the way that word connotations, or their cultural and contextual definitions, vary from their literal dictionary or denotative meanings. But why? Well, imagine that you are speaking to an audience with second, third, or even fourth language speakers. Translations can vary quite a bit. Think, for example, about the word crew and how many different ways this word can be used in the English language. Trigger phrases are words that elicit a strong emotional response from individuals. In my family, this includes jokes about suicide. Not to get too personal, but I am sad to say that a few years ago, my uncle took his life. And ever since this deeply troubling family experience, we found ourselves particularly sensitive to humor or any language involving suicide. For example, even when someone jokingly says, I just want to kill myself, or I could totally die, we pay attention and it affects us in a different way. I'm sure there are many more that you can think of as well. Language about fat shaming, gender identity, racial or social economic status, one's mental or well being. I once had a student who told me that their trigger phrase or word was starving. That student explained to the class that she was a refugee and her family had in fact experienced true starvation. So let's talk about mindful inclusivity. Imagine that there's an audience member in a wheelchair, and instead of starting your speech about traveling abroad with a hypothetical attention getter like this, imagine that you're walking through the streets of Italy. Well, what could you say in that place? Imagine you're traveling the streets of Italy, wandering or exploring the streets of Italy. Just by changing one word, does it truly affect your message? Or does it carry impact to affect your audience? Perhaps you're talking to a group of economically impacted high school students. Asking them their favorite place to go out to dinner might draw up some interesting emotions or distractions in their brain while you're giving a speech about local recommendations. Inclusive language is sensitive to and therefore inclusive of all human being experiences, including our diverse identities. While yes, this can seem like a challenge and time-consuming process, it sure makes for a memorable and audience-centered message. I once had a student say, "Why even bother? Everything I say could potentially offend someone anyway." And I do understand this sentiment, but allow me to suggest that as a public speaker, your ethical responsibility is to design a message that impacts your audience while also showing that you care for them. Therefore, it's important to keep them in mind while making the big impact. Simple and small adjustments, such as changing the word walking to exploring, can play a major role in showing that you care. So today we learned that language is powerful. It paints pictures. It carries various cultural, political, and personal meanings for us all. We need to be mindful of even well-intentioned language that could exclude folks. In short, being a mindful speaker means communicating with awareness, intention, and respect. It's about being present in the moment and considering the impact of your words before delivering them. So pause. Focus on the message. Listen actively to your audience. Consider your tone and body language. Be curious and stay open-minded. Take responsibility for your messages and craft them with care. Thank you.